thing for Barbara." The young man gazed at his youthful adviser, and was so overpowered that he could think of nothing to say. "When do you go?" Donald continued. "Next week. I'm coming back in 6 weeks not 2 months for my uncle's wedding," said Dennis, finding his voice. There was a pause, and Frances, seeing from her brother's expression that he was deep in thought, forbore to make any remark until she saw him smile. Then she said, "Well, Donald?" But her brother addressed himself to Dennis. "Considering you've been here a good time now," he said, "you haven't seen much of the country, really. Suppose you came for a long walk on the moor to-morrow with Frances and me and Barbara?" Dennis's eyes lighted up. "If Barbara will, I shall be charmed," he said. "I think she'll come," Donald said cheerfully, and moved by some persuasion or force Barbara consented, and the four started off across the moors. They started together, that was certain, but did not return in the same manner, for Donald and Frances had got most thoroughly lost, although, as Donald said with a grin, he had walked that moor, man and boy, for the past 6 years. But when the two truants returned they did not seem at all cast down by their misfortune, while Dennis certainly came back in a more cheerful mood than that in which he had set out. "I think you'll find things all right when you come back again," Donald whispered on the morning the visitors were to go, and Dennis, nodding, gripped his hand so tightly that the boy winced. "I think," said Frances, as she watched the carriage disappearing, "I think, Donald, Aunt Anne ought to be very thankful that she was so generous. She has been rewarded, hasn't she, in finding Uncle Morton?" "Yes, virtue has had its reward. But you know, Frances, I think we're being rather generous, too." "Yes?" Frances said, interrogatively. "Well, the end will be that we lose Barbara, and we haven't raised a finger to prevent it; on the contrary, we've helped, and you know we're never likely to find another sister like her." "No, of course not; but all the same, a wedding and I suppose there'll be two will make a grand finale, like the Codas you have in Marches." "Yes, you're rather poetical, Frances, and perhaps by the time you're ready for France another aunt will turn up to take you there." "I hope so, though they can't always expect to find Uncle Morton's as a reward. But there's time enough to think of that; and at any rate, Don, I'm going to be a bridesmaid at the wedding." "Yes," said Donald, "and there'll be 2 wedding cakes running, Fran. Think of that!" Chapter 20 End of Barbara in Brittany by E. A. Gilly Read by Sabella Denton in Carrollton, Georgia in January 2009. For more free audiobooks or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.